Hello, welcome to Chapter 2, The Body as a Whole, Cells and Genes. So what we're going to work on today is using roots, combining forms, suffixes, and prefixes to construct and analyze, deconstruct medical terms. We're going to do these that relate to the anatomy and physiology of the body as a whole. We're going to work on spelling and pronunciation of words, these different medical terms with cells and tissues, genes, genetics, genetic therapy, tissues, and we're going to look at maps of the body cavity. So we're going to do a lot of different things in this chapter. So the body is composed of many different structures. The whole body or organism is composed of organ systems. Organ systems are composed of organs. Organs are composed of tissues. Tissues are composed of cells, and cells are composed of organelles. So as we break things down from one to the next, this allows us to break things down. Organ systems to organs. Organs are made of tissues. Tissues are made of cells, and cells are made of organelles. So these all work together. The cell is the building block of a human. A zygote is a single fertilized cell in the beginning of a human being. The result of fertilization of an egg by a sperm is a single fertilized cell known as a zygote. This cell is the origin of every cell in the body. It divides and multiplies into millions of cells that are the basic unit of every tissue and organ. So let's look at some words that relate to the body and cells. Cytology. Cyte is my root word. O is my combining vowel. So cyto is my combining form. Logy is that suffix. So cytology is the study of cells because logy is that study of, cyto is cells. Cytologist, again, that same combining form that means cells. Then logist, logist is the someone who specializes in that structure, chemistry, and pathology of cells. So cytologists identify both normal and abnormal cell function and growth. Physicians depend on cytologists to identify abnormal cells in order to treat and care for patients with tissue abnormalities such as cancer. So we go through and pronounce these different words. Cytology. This means the study of cells. Fertilization. This is the union of a male sperm and a female egg. Tissue. A collection of similar cells. Each type of tissue in a particular organ is made up of the same type of cells. Zygote is a cell resulting from the union of a sperm and an egg. So here's our root. In cytologist, cyto means specialist in that structure, chemistry, and pathology of a cell. Organelle, our root, is organ. This is part of a cell having specialized functions. And molecular. Molecule is my root. Means a very small particle. Breaking down these words can help you in defining these words, which is why we're taking the time to do this. So cytology, as we said, is that study of cellular structure and function. Understanding cell function and structure is the basis for understanding the human body and how it works. Each cell is a small, complex factory carrying out special metabolic tasks. The chemical processes that occur in the cell. So every cell is going to carry out these different basic functions. It's going to make proteins and lipids. It's going to produce and use energy. All of our cells communicate with each other. All of our cells, not all, most of our cells can replicate through that DNA and reproduce itself. So here is a cell. The nucleus is the largest organelle in a cell. Most cells have a nucleus. Red blood cells do not. The DNA responsible for duplicating the cell is found in this nucleus. The nucleus is surrounded and protected by a nuclear membrane. This outer area. Usually in this nucleolus is where you're going to find that DNA specifically. This nucleolus helps to manufacture proteins through a process known as anabolism. The mitochondria, or mitochondrion, as it's listed here, for plural, more than one, these are the powerhouses of the cell. They're going to make energy by breaking down glucose and fat. This is a process of catabolism. Anabolism plus catabolism equals metabolism, the constantly changing physical and chemical processes. So that anabolism is building, so we're building proteins, we're building fats. Catabolism is breaking things down. So we break down glucose for energy. We break down fats for energy. So the process of breaking things down and building things up gives us our metabolism. So cyto means cell. Plasm, that's this clear gelatinous substance that forms a substance of a cell and surrounds its nucleus. So all of this free space around this cell here, without the organelles, just all the blue around it, that is filled with this cytoplasm. It's this fluid inside of the cell. Deoxyribonucleic acid. Sure you've all heard of this before. That's your DNA. This little source is contains all of your hereditary characteristics. So deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. And our last word on this slide is mitochondria. Mitochondria. This is that organelle that's going to store and release energy for cell activities. The energy plant of a cell. That's why it's that powerhouse. Makes your cells energy. Now let's look at some words and find the roots. We have catabolism. Our root is going to be catabol, which means to break down. Ism is going to mean a process. So catabolism is a process of breaking down complex substances into simpler ones. What I tell my anatomy students with the word catabolism, it has the word cat in it, and cats like to knock things over and break. So cats will break things by knocking something down. So it's breaking into smaller pieces. That's kind of what I teach my anatomy students. If that one helps you remember that word, then great. Chromosome. Our root, or our combining form, I should say, because our root is chrome and our combining vowel is O. This means color. And then our suffix, some, is going to mean body. So chromosome is the body of in the nucleus that contains DNA and genes. And then our last one, nucleus. Nucleus, it's a Latin word that means a command center. So it's that functional center of a cell or structure. Let's move into genes and genetics. So the nucleus of a cell contains 46 chromosomes or 23 pairs in human body cells. Chromatin, are thin strands of DNA that are packed in the nucleus of a cell. Chromosomes are condensed chromatin plus histone proteins that form during cell division. There are between 20,000 and 25,000 genes in the human genome. Mitosis is the process that allows these cells to replicate and make copies of itself. Mutations can alter those nucleotides, though, and it can change that sequence of the genome. Our DNA sits in this form that is known as this double helix. Best way to describe it is a spiral staircase. So here, this picture of the human chromosomes lined up in pairs is called the karyotype. Chromosomes 1 through 22 are the same in males and females. It's the 23rd pair here where females have two X chromosomes. Males have an X and a Y chromosome. So let's look at the root combining forms of these terms. Deoxyribonucleic acid. So let's start. Ribo. Ribose. That's what it is. Nuclei is another combining form, meaning nucleus. Acid means low pH. Deoxyribonucleic acid is the chemical repository of hereditary characteristics. Let's find the root/combining forms for nucleotide. So nucleo is my combining form for nucleus. Tide means time. Nucleotide is a combination of a DNA base, a sugar molecule, and a phosphate molecule. Karyotype. Karyo, that is one of my root or combining forms. This also means nucleus. Type is a suffix, not a combining form. So karyotype is the chromosome characteristics of an individual cell. And then genetic. Our combining form, or technically root, is just gen. Gen means to create. So genetics or genetic means pertaining to genetics. genetic medicine? So, medical genetics is the application of genetics to medical care. Cytogenetics is the study of chromosome abnormalities to determine a cause for developmental delay, mental retardation, birth defects, and dysmorphic features. Gene therapy is an experimental technique to replace a mutated gene that causes disease with a healthy copy. Predictive medicine looks at the probability of a disease and allows preventative measures to be taken. Tissues, organs, and organ systems. So there are 4 primary tissue groups within the body. We have connective tissue. This connective tissue binds, supports, and protects. Different examples of connective tissue would be blood, bone, cartilage, and fat. Our next tissue type is epithelial. Epithelial tissue protects, secretes, absorbs, and excretes. So, some examples of epithelial would be your skin. Glands, like sweat glands. Muscle. So, muscle controls movement. We have skeletal muscle that is attached to bone. That's what allows you to move your arms, your legs, and your trunk. Smooth muscle found in internal organs. This is what helps move food through your digestive system. And then we have cardiac muscle. This is found in the heart. And the last type of tissue is nervous tissue. Nervous tissue transmits impulses for coordination and sensory reception. So it sends information to your muscles to move. It also sends sensory input back into the brain. So when somebody touches you, you feel something, you're holding something, this information goes back into the brain. Some examples are your brain, your spinal cord, and nerves. So the knee joint contains all the different connective tissues and is used to illustrate their functions. So what are the 3 bones of the knee joint? We have the femur, the fibula, and the tibia. And the patella, which is not pictured here. What is the difference between cartilage and ligaments? Well, cartilage is more rubbery. It's a more flexible surface, while ligaments are strips or bands of connective tissue. What structure attaches muscle to bone? Tendons are going to attach that muscle to bones. And what is the purpose of synovial fluid? It's going to allow joints to move freely without friction. It also gives the cartilage in the joints nutrients. All the structures in the knee are well supplied with nerves. which is why it hurts. If you've ever hurt your knee before, it's very painful. So let's go through pronouncing some words here. Capsular. Capsular means a capsule. Collagen. Collagen is the major protein of connective tissue, cartilage, and bone. And periosteum. Periosteum is that fibrous membrane that covers a bone. So here are some of our different organ systems and what makes up these different organ systems. These organ systems usually consist of several different organs that work together. So we are going to go through all of these different organ systems throughout this semester. Our first organ system is the integumentary system. That integumentary system is your skin, your hair, your nails, your sweat glands. Sebaceous glands are oil glands. Every one of your hairs on your body has oil, these oil glands attached to it. That's why if you don't wash your hair for a few days, your hair gets really oily. It's from these sebaceous glands. Your skin protects you. It regulates your body temperature. Those sweat glands, when you get hot, you're going to sweat. It helps to support sensory receptors. So you know when something is touching you. Skeletal system. We have bones, ligaments, and cartilage. This is what provides the framework of your entire body. It's going to protect organs. It's going to protect soft tissues. It provides attachment sites for muscle. Because when muscles contract, they're moving bone. We also make our blood cells in our bones. We also store calcium and phosphate, those inorganic salts, in our bones. Our muscular system is made up of muscles. It's what allows you to move. It's going to maintain posture. Every time a muscle contracts, it generates heat. Your nervous system. We mentioned that before, brain, spinal cord, nerves, and then we also have sense organs. These are going to receive, interpret sensory information. So how hard something's touching you. Something is flying near your body, like touching the hairs on your arm. You're going to feel that, process it. And then it's going to stimulate muscles to contract or glands to secrete. Our endocrine system. This is all of your hormones. Hormones are going to control other organs. They're going to control your metabolic activity. Some of them are just straight up going to control your metabolism. So we have the pituitary, the thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal, pancreas, ovaries, testes, pineal, and thymus. These are all the organs that make up that endocrine system. Cardiovascular system. This is your heart and your blood vessels. So they're going to move blood around the body. It's going to transport different substances. We're going to transport oxygen, carbon dioxide. We're going to transport different ions, different nutrients around the body. We have our lymphatic system. This is your lymph vessels, lymph nodes, that thymus, and that spleen. Your lymphatic system is your immune system. So it's working to protect against disease. It's going to return fluids to the blood. It's going to help absorb mostly fats from your digestive tract. Then our digestive system, your mouth, tongue, teeth, salivary glands, pharynx, esophagus. Your digestive system receives, breaks down, and absorbs food. Then we eliminate what we don't need. Respiratory system. That is your nasal cavity, the pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, lungs. We're going to go through what all of these are in each of the specific organ chapters. This is going to take in and release air. We are going to exchange that oxygen, that gas, between the blood. Urinary system, those kidneys, ureters, bladder, urethra. This is how we get rid of waste products in our system, one of the ways that we're going to remove wastes from the body. But it also maintains your water levels, your electrolyte levels. And it stores, because we store urine in our bladder till it's time to eliminate. Then we have our reproductive system. This is the system where the male and the female systems are different. They contain different organs. Like the males, they have the scrotum, testes, epididymis, vas deferens, vas deferentia, seminal vesicles, prostate, bulbourethral glands, urethra, penis. Females have the ovary, fallopian tubes, uterus, vagina, and vulva. Males are going to produce sperm. They transfer that sperm to the female reproductive tract. Female reproductive system is going to produce egg cells that will receive sperm cells that will develop into an embryo, which function in the birth process. So let's look at these organ systems. Musculoskeletal system is the muscular and skeletal systems. They tend to a lot of times be combined into one system just because those muscles are going to move the body. What they're doing though is they're moving bones. Because they attach to bones, they're moving that bone. So we break this word down. All is my suffix, which means pertaining to. Musculo means that muscle. Skelet means skeleton. So musculoskeletal means pertaining to muscles and the bony skeleton. If we did not have a skeleton, we would be shapeless. We would not be able to move. Even if we have muscles but no skeleton, we couldn't move. So that skeletal system has those bones, has those joints, those ligaments, and then cartilage, which is found at the ends of most bones. It provides that framework, attachment site for those muscles to allow you to move. So the cardiovascular system, that heart and blood vessels, it's moving blood throughout the body, and it's also transporting different substances. The condition of your cardiovascular system will always be a factor in your physical well-being throughout your entire life. That digestive system contains everything from your mouth all the way through that large intestines. It's one opening from the mouth to the anus. We receive food, we break foods down, we eliminate. Every cell in your body requires a constant supply of nourishment in a form that can be absorbed across its cell membrane. The digestive system breaks down nutrients into form that we can use in our cells. In this form that can be transported across these cell membranes and to be so we can break it down to make energy. Homeostasis. Homeostasis contains the suffix stasis and has our combining form of homeo. One way homeostasis means is maintaining the stability of the body's internal environment. One way to describe homeostasis is your body's happy place. Your body's way to adjust to different changes. Like when breathing speeds up, your heart rate's going to speed up to provide more oxygen and blood to tissues to allow this stressed person to run from a stressor. Another example of homeostasis, your body gets too hot. Your body's going to stimulate your sweat glands to release out sweat to cool down the body. Your body gets too cold. This is what causes those goosebumps. Because remember in that muscle chapter, that when I said that muscle chapter, every time a muscle contracts, it generates heat. Well, there's a little tiny muscle that is attached to every hair on your body. That muscle contracts and can cause that hair to stand up. That contracting of that muscle generates heat to warm you up. That's what also causes you to shiver. That contraction of muscles is generating that heat. Anatomical positions, planes, and directions. Anatomical position is when you are standing straight up, your feet are flat on the floor, your face and your eyes are facing straight forward. Your arms are at your side with your palms facing forward. A person who lies flat on their back is supine. When the palms face forwards, the arms are supine. Another way to remember supine, it has the word up in it, which means face up. When a person is lying flat on their belly, they are prone. When the palms are facing backwards, the forearm is prone. I look at prone, it has the word on in it. So they are face down or on their belly is another way to remember some of those terms. So here is anatomical position. This drawing, this person is in anatomical position. So let's look at some of these different terms that are listed on here. Proximal and distal are used for arms and legs only. So proximal means closer to your trunk. Distal means further away from your trunk. Like my wrist is distal to my elbow. My shoulder is proximal to my elbow. So I'm saying my shoulder is closer to my trunk than my elbow, or that my wrist is further away from my trunk than my elbow. We have medial, that just means closer to the middle, or lateral, that means further from the middle. We have superior, which is also cephalic. Cephal means head. Inferior or caudal means further away. It's towards the feet. So that caudal means it's further away from that head. And then we have midline. That's just directly down the middle of the body. Then your right side, your left side. When you're facing somebody, you got to remember that your right is their left is your right. So it's flipped. So this is something to kind of remember when you're looking directly at somebody. So here's all of our medical terms or directional terms. That superior means situated above. Inferior, situated below. Proximal, nearest to the center of the body. Distal, away from the center of the body. Anterior just means in front. Posterior means in the back. So back of the body for posterior, anterior is the front of the body. Anatomical planes. So the body is viewed through imaginary slices. There are three major anatomical planes. We have a sagittal plane. Sagittal is cutting the body into a right and a left half. Frontal plane is giving us a front and a back. And then that transverse plane is giving us slices along the center of the body. If you've ever had an MRI or a CT done, they are done in that transverse plane and slices. So let's define some of these words. We have caudal versus cephalic. Caudal near the tail, cephalic means it's near the head. Supine versus prone. Supine is on the back or face up. Prone is lying on the stomach. Proximal just means near the center of the body. Distal, further from the center of the body. So let's look at the roots of the following words and their meaning. So we have coronal. Corone means crown. So it's a vertical plane dividing the body into anterior and posterior portions. Coronal is the same as from that picture above, is that frontal plane. It's the same thing, it's just a different word for the same thing. Ventral. Might be helpful to use a highlighter. Ventral, that ventre is going to mean belly. So pertaining to the belly or situated nearer the surface of the belly. And then dorsal. Dorse is our root. That means pertaining to the back or situated behind. All, this means pertaining to. Let's look at abdominal quadrants. So the abdomen is usually divided into 4 quadrants. We have our right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, left lower quadrant. Another way we can write these, right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, left lower quadrant. If you see those abbreviations, that is what they mean. In a healthy bowel, bowel sounds can actually be heard in all 4 of these quadrants. The mid-abdomen can also be divided into 3 regions, creating a 9-quadrant system. So we can get this hypochondriac region, meaning below the ribs. We have a lumbar region, lateral to the umbilicus, and inguinal region, lateral to the hypogastric region. These 3 regions are not shown. They're shown in this picture here. We also have this epigastric, which means above the stomach. Umbilical region, well, that's where your umbilicus or belly button is. And then we have the hypogastric, below the stomach. We also have these regions. Our body is also separated up into different cavities. We have a cranial cavity, a spinal cavity, a thoracic cavity, an abdominal cavity, and a pelvic cavity. We can call the abdominal cavity and pelvic cavity the abdominal pelvic. And we can also call the thoracic cavity, we have a mediastinum, lung, and heart, are what make these up into. The diaphragm is what's going to separate the thoracic cavity from the abdominal pelvic cavity. So let's look at the terms epigastric and hypogastric. I mentioned it before, but epigastric, epi means above, stomach. Gastric means stomach. Hypo means below. Gastric means stomach. So below the stomach. So effective medical treatment is going to require the knowledge of the location of each organ, tissue, and cell in the body. Each organ, tissue, and cell is connected to and functions in harmony with every other organ system. Homeostasis is the coordinated response of all organs to maintain their internal physiologic stability of an organism. Medical terms help to describe clearly the location of different anatomical structures and lesions and their relation to each other in the human body. And this is everything for chapter 2. The slides from here on out are different contexts for different information. So you can go through and click on these if you want, but this is the end of chapter 2. Thank you very much for listening and have a wonderful day.